Okay, well, firstly, I'd like to just say thank you for inviting me onto your platform. It's a real honour to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to just share a little bit about myself. So, for me, I took early retirement last year, and I am a mum of three young men, and I have five grandchildren, and we just live an ordinary life.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
Family is very, very important to me. That is one of my strongest values, family. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I'm coming from a health background. So I was a nurse for over 35 years. And then more recently retrained as a new profession in the UK called physician associate. Some countries call it physician assistant. So that basically means that I practice medicine. So I practiced medicine for the past 10 years as a physician associate and took early retirement last year. So my background is that I come from a family. I have five siblings with my mum and dad, and it was an ordinary upbringing. My parents came from the Caribbean to the UK. So they were part of the Windrush. I don't know if you've heard of the Windrush scandal that's happened here. So they came, when the country, the UK, was rebuilding after World War II. My parents came and helped to, be part of that whole process of rebuilding the UK. So that's a little bit about me. Again, it's the importance of family. It's the importance of God, because I am a believer. The importance of having joy in your life, and family, God first and family second, and then everything else after that. And that's how my parents, that's what they taught us: God first, family, and everything else after that. And when you can hold on to those values, you live your life by them. And we've also got good genes, because my mum looks really young for her age as well. I grew up in this sort of early 60s. So I'm a 60s baby. And so that'll kind of give you an indication of how old I am. But I grew up in the UK. It was very it was an interesting time. I think we were really happy. We didn't have much. We weren't rich or anything like that. So, but we were together, and we were very close as a family because we had to be. There was a lot of racism at the time, and as we were growing up, there was a lot of unrest racially, sort of in the late 60s, early 70s. It was a difficult time for us, especially as I was coming into my teenage years, and we're trying to find our way in life, because we were born here. My parents were Jamaican. A lot of us were from, my peers, our parents were from the Caribbean, and we didn't seem to fit anywhere, if that made sense. We weren't, we're here in the UK, we're born here, but we weren't seen as British. And yet when you go home to the Caribbean, you weren't necessarily seen as Jamaican or whichever island it was that you came from. So we kind of felt, personally for me, I kind of felt a bit of a limbo. Wasn't quite sure where I fit, So those were really difficult times, and there was a lot of social justice issues for us growing up, very different from the young people today, because we were fighting for our place, and so we had to carve out what it meant to be Black and British for us. And we did look to the Caribbean at that time. We looked to, a lot of my peers. I mean, wasn't personally, but a lot of us we have to, it's about identity. How are we identifying ourselves? So we looked to the Caribbean. So a lot of my peers, became Rastafarians, and, it was something that they could connect with. So it was music as well. The music spoke to the times that we were living in. And so that was another way that we would communicate with each other up and down the country, through the music. A lot of the music came, from the Caribbean. And then what happened as time went on, there was an evolution of the music. So it became sort of a Black British. So you had things like what we call lovers rock music, which was British based, but it had the Caribbean flavor still. I think, you said something yourself, it's embedded in society. It's embedded, this whole notion of racism is embedded in the institutions of this country. And it rolls down from the top right down to the grassroots level. There is this notion that we as Black people are inferior, that we don't do the same as our host country. So there's and it's always been there. I don't know anything different. And it's really hard to navigate your way through. It's hard to be able to, I think things are changing slightly, but it has been very hard to find your way, find your path. And I don't think there's a Black person in this country that can say that they've not been touched by racism, even in my job. And I consider myself, as a professional person, working in this system, born in this country, I still have had to fight my way to where I was, and to stand firm and to stand on those values. My children, I had three sons, fighting your way through the education system because of the preconceived ideas that they have about Black children, particularly Black boys. I had to, and I was a single parent as well. And so there was all of these things that kind of contributed to what I would say the crushing of us as Black people here. And you had to have the energy, you had to have the strength to stand up and fight. You're fighting, you're not fighting another individual necessarily. What you're doing is you're fighting an institution. You're fighting an ideology. That in itself is very soul destroying. I think it was just, always has been. It's just been in sort of inherent in me. And that's because of my own upbringing, knowing that, and I guess as well, I know that we don't want to talk about all that other stuff, but it was important to be able to stick together as a family. That for me is what got us through, myself and my siblings, and the values that my parents instilled in us. So it was always very, very important, and to be able to pass those values on to the children in the family, not just my children, but my nieces and my nephews. So that, I think, is it's just always been, and that's just carried through to do the work that I do. That sort of caring and nurturing led me into the field of the medical profession. So I was a nurse, as I said, for a while, and although they weren't necessarily my blood family, but it was important that my patients felt safe, that somebody was, that they knew that they were being cared for and nurtured. It was just something that was innate within me, and I just accept that as a gift from God, to be able to. That was my calling, it still is, to nurture and help others in a way that is like family, the human family, So it's an extension of my own into the wider community.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi 14. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.